Picture a specific number in your head right now, not your current salary. The number where you would finally exhale. The number where you would stop opening your banking app with a small flinch of dread, where a text from your mate about a spontaneous weekend away wouldn't trigger a silent, slightly panicked mental calculation before you even reply. Hold that number in your mind for a second, because we are about to compare it against what the actual research says, and the gap between the two is the entire subject of this video. Chances are, whatever number you just pictured, it is higher than what you earn right now, possibly considerably higher. And chances are, if we came back to this exact same question in 3 years, after a genuine pay rise, after real career progress, the number you picture then will have quietly climbed too. That is not a coincidence, and it is not really about you personally. It is a documented, measurable pattern, and it has a name. This is not a story about getting rich. This is a story about a very specific word, comfortable, and why it keeps moving further away no matter how much closer your salary gets to it. Here is the number that should genuinely surprise you. Before we go anywhere near the psychology of it, according to a major UK salary survey heading into 2026, the average person currently earns £40,638 a year, but believes they need £51,748 to actually live comfortably. That gap, just over £11,000, has a name inside the research. They call it the comfort gap. And it is not a small, occasional feeling. It shows up consistently across almost every income bracket surveyed. The strain behind that gap is genuinely visible in people's actual monthly finances, not just in how they answer a survey question. Roughly a quarter of respondents said they have £100 or less left over each month once the essential bills are paid, and 7% said their entire salary goes toward essentials with nothing left over at all. This is not a small margin of the population feeling slightly squeezed. This is a very large share of ordinary earners with almost no breathing room between their income and their obligations, which goes a long way toward explaining why the number people reach for when asked what would feel comfortable tends to sit so far above what they currently have. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. Men on average say they need £59,688 to feel comfortable. Women say £44,707. That is not a gap in actual living costs. Rent, food, and energy bills do not check your gender before deciding what to charge you. It is a gap in perception, shaped by different starting salaries, different social comparisons, and a target that quietly recalibrates itself, depending on who you are comparing yourself against. And it echoes something else in the same data. Men currently earn £48,367 on average, women £33,852, a gap of well over £14,000. The perceived comfort target and the actual pay gap move in almost exactly the same direction, which suggests the number people picture as comfortable is anchored less to fixed living costs and more to whatever their own reference group happens to be earning around them. Age changes the picture too, in a way that says something honest about how ambition and comparison actually work. The desired, comfortable income peaks not among older, more established earners, but in the 25 to 34 age bracket at £65,341, even though actual salaries in that same age group average considerably less. This is the age where career comparison is often at its most intense, where a friend's promotion or a former classmate's new job title lands hardest, and where the gap between the number you have and the number you have started picturing tends to be widest of all. So let's actually ground this in something more solid than a feeling. What does the research say a comfortable income genuinely requires, based on real costs rather than a survey question asked at the end of a long, tiring week? Building on the Joseph Rowntree Foundation's minimum income standard, plus a margin for the things that make life feel comfortable rather than merely survivable. A single adult in the UK needs roughly £38,000 a year in 2026. A couple without children needs around £54,000. A lone parent with 2 children needs closer to £76,000. A couple with 2 children needs approximately £92,500. These are not luxury figures, and nobody involved in calculating them was picturing a yacht. They include a proper annual holiday, steady, modest savings, meals out occasionally, and a genuine buffer for the boiler breaking in February. Nothing more extravagant than that and considerably less than most people instinctively assume comfortable requires. And location changes everything, often more than income itself. Living in London or the Southeast can add somewhere between £15,000 and £20,000 onto every single one of those figures, driven almost entirely by rental costs rather than anything else. A £35,000 salary in Manchester, once rent is properly accounted for, can genuinely feel more comfortable day to day than the same £35,000 in London, where the identical one-bedroom flat costs several £100s more in rent every single month before anything else is even considered, let alone enjoyed. Now here's the twist that actually explains why your own number, the one you pictured at the start of this video, keeps drifting upward no matter how much you earn. According to one recent survey, 60% of British people earning £90,000 a year believe they are approximately average. £90,000 sits comfortably inside the top 10% of all UK earners. Nowhere near average by any actual measure, but because most people compare themselves to their own immediate circle, colleagues, friends, neighbors with a slightly bigger house, rather than to the national income distribution as a whole, the goalposts of comfortable quietly move every single time you move into a new social circle. You do not compare yourself to Britain. You compare yourself to whoever is standing closest to you, and there is always somewhere someone standing slightly closer to the horizon than you are. This is where genuine psychological research becomes useful, rather than just interesting trivia. The relationship between income and happiness is described by researchers as logarithmic, which sounds technical, but means something quite specific and quite important. If you doubled your salary from £20,000 to £40,000, you would feel a real, measurable uptick in happiness, genuinely noticeable in day-to-day life. To feel that exact same size of uptick again, you would not need another £20,000. You would need to double it again, all the way to £80,000, then to £160,000 for the next equivalent step, and £320,000 after that. The climb gets steeper and steeper for the exact same emotional reward every single time, which is precisely why chasing comfortable as a number that keeps rising with your salary is such an exhausting, ultimately losing game. The reward for each additional pound shrinks continuously, quietly, while the effort required to earn it usually does the opposite. And there appears to be something close to a genuine ceiling. Beyond roughly £120,000 a year, a figure only the top 1% of earners in Britain ever actually reach. Researchers at Oxford found no statistically significant relationship between further income and life satisfaction at all. Past that point, more money simply stops moving the needle in any way researchers can reliably detect, no matter how large the additional sum. Compare that to where most people actually sit in the real distribution rather than in their own head. The UK median full-time salary of £39,039 already places you in the top half of all earners in the country. £100,000 places you in the top 5%. £186,840 places you in the top 1%, the exact territory where the happiness research says the climb stops paying out in any measurable way. The number most people quietly picture as merely doing all right, somewhere well north of what they currently earn, is, statistically, a number the vast majority of the country will never reach at all, comfortable or otherwise. So, where does that leave your number, the one you pictured right at the start, the one that made you flinch slightly at your own banking app? It is probably somewhere between the honest cost of living figures we walked through and the inflated, comparison-driven figure the survey data reveals almost everyone quietly carries around without ever examining it properly. The actual research suggests something almost nobody wants to hear at first, because it does not flatter the instinct to keep chasing upward. Comfortable is not a moving target chasing whoever earns slightly more than you at work, on your street, or in your friend group. It is closer to a fixed, calculable point, the point where your bills are genuinely covered, where a real emergency does not derail your entire month, and where you get to choose a few things purely because you want them. rather than purely because you can technically justify them after the fact. Once you cross that specific line, and for most single people in Britain that line sits closer to £38,000 than to £51,000, chasing the number upward stops buying you nearly as much peace as the first crossing did. The rest of the climb buys diminishing returns, dressed up convincingly as ambition and sold back to you by comparison, rather than by any genuine change in what your actual life requires. Know your actual number, the real one, grounded in real cost, not the one quietly inflated by whoever you happen to be standing next to this particular year, at this particular job, in this particular postcode. If you learned something from this video, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one.